Okay, let's start. Thank you all for coming. I assume most of you know Rafael. Rafael did his PhD here, finished like 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Yeah, two years ago.
As part of the ComMusic project, and he was our ethnomusicologist and a specialist in Shinshu, in Beijing opera during all that time. And now he's at Graz as a senior scientist, but he continues collaborating with us very much. He's now here teaching the master, so many of you are in the program. And he's also strongly collaborating with the project that in fact was the one designing it, which is called Musical Bridges. And I guess that's what he's going to talk about.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me here for these weeks. And thank you all for coming. For this, I think it's the first official presentation of Musical Bridges in the MTG, which is a very nice project that started almost 2 years ago. And Xavier is the principal investigator, and Baris, me, and Sonia, and Recep, and many other people are working on. So the idea for today is just to introduce what is this project. So this is the outline for today's talk. I start stating the motivation, so why we wanted to do this project. And then I'll specify the objectives of the project, and I'll show you some of the preliminary results by demonstrating the tools we created for Hindustani classical music and for Qingju music. And then I'll wrap up with some conclusions. And also at the end, I like to to throw an idea of possibly something like applied computational musicology. So we can discuss that at the very end. So let's start with the motivation, and I'll start with two obvious ideas. Is that you have available in any computer, any phone, all the music, most of the music of the world. So you can go to YouTube and listen to something like this. Beautiful music that you can now listen being in Barcelona or in whichever part of the world where you can access YouTube. But you have other repositories, like for example, you can search for information like in Internet of Caro and listen to music like this. So the point is just you have access to music from all over the world, but this accessibility doesn't necessarily mean that you can understand what's going on in this music, right? You can listen to it, you might know if you like it or not, but the fact that you have access to it doesn't mean necessarily that you can understand what is going on. For example, can you just try to mark the beat of this piece? Just so I can see which beats. So I see this beat. I see this beat too, from you. Okay? We'll see this piece later and see the beat. And knowing the beat and then the meter around it is fundamental for understanding this music. So this is part of the motivation of the musical bridges. we have so many data available, and we have, so we'll finish listening this piece. And we collected so many data in the ComMusic project that I think I don't need to present it here, you all know it. And just to give a glimpse of the data we collected, we have these many recordings from these 5 music traditions that we researched in ComMusic, including music scores and data sets of different annotations. So we have all this data that we gathered, and we have the opportunity to contribute to people better understand this music. So this is one of the motivations, to build a platform for helping people understand this music through the data that now they have available everywhere in the world. There is more motivations like that. There's bigger motivations that I will be describing during the presentation. But this is one of the seeds of the project. So with this in mind, we were moving to the field of music education, that now it's becoming more and more prominent in the MTG. So just to give a very brief overview of the state of the art regarding the goals we have for this project. So there is a lot of literature regarding how to deal in music education with performance skills, which is called the musicianship. Maybe you listened last week to presentation by Baris on the Music Critic project, which is related to that, and also Rafael's project. Tell me, there is a lot of research in music education, and there is being work going on here in the MTG about developing performance skills. But in musical bridges, we're not interested in that. We're interested in developing what could be called as perceptual skills. So help people better understand the music. Not necessarily performing it, but just understanding. It's comprehension of the music. It's what Elliot and Silverman call listenership. It's not only, listenership is described in this literature as part of musicianship, but now we were focusing here just in helping users better understand the music. That's the goal, right? Develop perceptual skills for each of the different music traditions for which we have data. So what is the state of the art on creating listenership? So if we go to the materials developed for music education and developing perceptual skills, we have a lot of material published. For example, this is the beautiful publication by Jonathan Stock, World Sound Matters. Or we have a collection of more than 20 volumes in this collection here, Experiencing Music and Expressing Culture, led by Wade and Campbell. We have books here. This is the book for music in North India. This is music in Turkey. And we have for all the regions of the world. We have very detailed publications for specific cultures, like the Raga Guide, which is a wonderful publication for approaching Raga music. So we have all this material and many more, and we have websites and everything. We have all this material, and all these are printed books, and they are accompanied with CDs. So this book has 4 CDs covering 74 ragas. Each of the books in this collection comes with a CD, and also the World Sound Matters came with a double CD. So they all have the music. So, but we still found some shortcomings in these materials. First of all, most of them are addressed to official curricula of education, especially from the United States of America. So if you take this book, for example, you have this volume with a lot of activities to do in the classroom. So they are designed for secondary school. This could be a limitation because we want to address as more people as possible. The same case here. You have a lot of activities suggested, but it's always in the framework or the environment of a classroom. Right? Then they require music literacy. So for example, World Sound Matters, 2 volumes. The second one is just scores. It's transcriptions of the whole CD. So you need to read staff notation in order to this for you to be useful. So that limits the impact of it. And the same is the case of the Raga Guide, where you have beautiful transcriptions of part of the recordings here. So people who doesn't understand staff notation are limited when using this material. Then there is the music examples are limited to the supporting material here, so to the CD. So here we have 74 ragas covered. The performance of a raga in Khayal lasts for 30, 40, 50 minutes. If you want to have a full example of 74 ragas, imagine how many CDs you need to issue for one single publication. So these are shortened versions. They're not full performances. They're shortened versions of a raga just to illustrate the concept. The same here. They are covering music in Turkey. This is huge, going from classical Ottoman music to modern hip-hop. So if you want to cover some classical music, or here in North Indian music, the same, from Bollywood to classical, if you have an example of a raga here, it's 5 minutes. They're clips taken from a raga. So they're not full examples. Of their full, there's only one. So you might learn how this particular performance functions, but know how the concept works in the broader scope. And most importantly, and this is the main goal that we want to address in musical bridges, is that there is still a gap between the text and what you listen from the CD. And let me show you this. Just an example from this fantastic book, Music in Turkey by Bates. Has a whole chapter in usul, which is the concept that regulates rhythm in Turkish classical music, Turkish Ottoman music. So this is an usul called aksak semai, and it's explained in the text and illustrated with this graph. You have the staff notation, but also these graphs. So usuls are explained with two strokes of a percussion instrument that are different, with dum and tek, right? And this usul has 4 strokes, but the duration is irregular. So the first had 3 units, 3 beats, 2, 2, and 3. So that would be the say, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, right? That's easy. You read the explanation, you see the example, you can read staff notation. If not, you have this very intuitive graph. Understood. Now, let's find it in the music. And this is one of the examples Bates gives for listening to this usul. Let's see if we can find the usul here. Oh, okay, this part seems more metrical than the previous one. Perhaps the previous one was just an introduction, and now so where's the doom and the tek? Anyone can find it? I listened to that I don't know how many times, couldn't find it. And I came back to the lab, and we have Barish here that time, and I asked, can you help me find the, I don't know. So we have the explanation. We understood the concept of this usul is clear, is dum, te, but then we go to the music and no way to find it, right? Sometimes you have this another usul. This is dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te, dum, te. And this is the music that is coming.
1 2 1 2 1 2 son 2 3.
Can you relate that music to this? Yeah? And it took a while to find. What's going on? Then you gave this nice score. So for you who can read score, you see here you have, where's my pointer? You have the usul here, dum, te, and this is what the percussion is playing. And you see that the percussion is giving strong beats after the usul. So what the percussion does, the surface and the usul are different, right? It's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So the beats, the accents are displaced. So, but now you have the score, and if you read the score,
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, son 2, 3.
you can follow with the score. But you need to read the score. And even if you can read the score, for example, this is the raga guide, explaining one of the most beautiful rags, Bhairav. So you have this, there is no recording for this, it's just explanation of the scale. Let's see. Sa, sa, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. That would be the scale. And you have this, if you can read the score, you can do that. And you have these characteristic phrases. Do, si, la, si, do, mi, fa. And then you have this, it could be mi, re, and then the squiggle, do, something like that. You can read, but you don't know the culture, so you just try to sing, to hum this along. And then you have the example and the transcription. And for those of you who can read the score, let's try to follow. And have more volume. So far for me it's good. I think we're there. At that point I was lost the first time I saw that. I think we're around here. Maybe this is the new. So it's so detailed that it's hard to follow. You have to listen many times, and you lose attention to the music, you just try to follow the score. And when you try to continue reading the whole thing, you get here, and it continues, right? I give you the first part, and then the music continues following the tal. So this is the part without tal, and I was interested to see the connection between the pitch, and then I don't have the score. So to sum up, this book is very good material, really, really good, very well curated by musicologists, but we found this sort of limitation. So the activities and the framework for which they were designed is official education. You need to know staff notation to use them fully, and even if you can use read notation, it's not that obvious, and it's not always that helpful, and there's still a gap between the text, the explanation, you understand it when it's written, and then you don't necessarily are able to listen to it in the recording. So these are the limitations we wanted to address in the project. And that's why we created musical bridges with a very gracious funding from Recercaixa. So what are the objectives of the project having these motivations? So the most obvious and specific one is to develop computational tools for aiding the understanding of alien, that means that it's a music culture that you were not raised into, right? That are foreign for you. So this is the more specific objective. Then addressing the educational context of the existing material, we want to do tools that support all sorts of educational formats. So that can be used in formal education, in informal education. I learned recently that it's also non-formal education, and even autonomous online learning. So all sorts of formats. Then we want them to be as intuitive as possible, so that not previous training in music theory is required. We can use oral data. So we have large amount of examples. They are full example of full performances. They are not restricted. So that as another value. And then, and this is the first bridge of the musical bridges, we want to bridge text and audio. We want to offer a connection between what is explained and we can listen. And how we can bridge that, and this is our proposal, just by creating some visualizations of selected musical entities, and with that to support what Campbell describes as attentive listening. So there are visualizations that guides you in the listening process, so you can direct your attention to these relevant elements. And also, when possible, to do some interactivity, in the sense that you can engage into what is called engaged listening, that you listen and you participate somehow physically embodying the music while you listen. So this is the characteristics of the tools we want to develop. And then we want to design also activities like courses or talks or lectures, seminars, to put this into practice and to offer them to the general public and see how they work. Finally, and I'll talk a bit about this at the end, to bridge cultures through music understanding. Once you can understand music, you can also understand the cultural background from which this music came. And that's a way of bridging your own culture with those that you're now approaching through these tools. And that's a hope we have in this project. So the work plan in musical bridges. First, we have to identify the elements of these music traditions we are researching, which is the 5 from ComMusic. And these elements should be able to be studied through these computational tools and from the data we have. We cannot address those that, for example, in the case of Hindustani music, we have only khayal recordings, which is a vocal genre. So all those elements related to instrumental music, we cannot address in musical bridges. Then we develop the corresponding tools when we have the plan set. And then we design an evaluation system to test if these tools really have an impact on those using them, right? So, and this is the current state of the project so far. For Hindustani music, it's the most developed one. We know what we want to cover in the tools, and we have developed most of them. For Carnatic music, we know what we want to do, but we're starting project of developing the tools. Tinju also is very well advanced. Andalusian music, we're about to start. We're starting now. And the less developed part is the design of evaluation system. We're still trying to think how we can test that the tool has an impact. How can we validate the impact of these tools in the user? So we're still thinking. We have some ideas for Hindustani and for Tinju music, but we're still looking for better solutions. And then regarding the activities for general audience, we've organized a few regarding Hindustani music. I'll give an overview at the end. Some about Tinju, and we're organizing now, so these days we're organizing a concert here in Barcelona in July 10th of Arab Andalusian music. So we still don't know where, but we know when, so if you can save the date, it's going to be a beautiful concert. So these are the objectives, the most precise objectives of musical bridges. So let's move now on to some of the preliminary results and show you some of these tools, okay? So these are the tools that are already published and ready for use. They are online, and you can find them in the Musical Bridges website. There is these 5 tools for Hindustani music and this multitask tool for Tinju, so to say. We also have some pilots for other music traditions that are still work in progress and are not fully released. And I'll show you one of them now. So, as for the Hindustani tools, the tools addressing Hindustani classical music. So I'm going to demonstrate these two regarding Tala, and now we'll see which is the beat of the recording we listened at the very beginning. So for the Hindustani tools, we are using not all the recordings we have in ComMusic because most of them are protected by copyright issues. So we're using these Saraka collections for which we have the rights and we can use them publicly. In this case, we're using the Hindustani recordings. We have 108 recordings of Hindustani classical music. And this, besides the recording, we have these files with information. We have the pitch track automatically extracted. And we have these manual annotations by experts. We know the tonic or the fundamental degree of each recording. We know the sama, which is the start of each metrical cycle, the start point of each tala, and also the sections of the recording. So unfortunately, we don't have all this information for all the recordings. We stick to only those recordings for which we have all this information. We actually have 49 recordings available for musical bridges. And these recordings cover 9 artists, 37 rags, and 6 styles. So I think it's good material to start working with. And they are all recordings of full performances. They are not summaries, as is the case of the Raga Guide. Okay, so I took the recordings, all these files from the pitch. Very easily, I pitch histogram and then picking to extract the scale from the particular recording. So with that, I developed this visualization tool using P5.js, and this is the one I'm going to show you now. So this is the site. This is all, if you go to the Musical Bridges website, resources you can get here. These are all the tools. I'm going to show first the TAL laboratory. So this is a way of learning TAL in isolation, just the concept of TAL, and you can learn this many, okay? This is the name of the TAL and the number of bits per TAL. I'm going to show you a rather complex one, which is but a beautiful one, which is ECTAL. So ECTAL is a tala with 12 bits. Each of these little circles are a bit, and it always works in a cyclical manner. So you always go to the first one. This could be the first one, and you always go this way, right? So it has 12 bits, and you see that some of these bits are bigger than the others. The bigger circles mean that you have to do something with your hand if you want to keep track of the tala, right? So you do something here, something here, and something there. What do you have to do with your hand? If the circle is full, you clap. If it is empty, you wave your hand, right? In fact, these gestures are called tali and kali. Kali means empty, so that's why the circle is empty. In this small one, you just count how many bits with the finger. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the idea. That's the tala. That's ECTAL, right? But there is an instrument, tabla, you know it, which keeps the tal. And its job is to keep the tal moving. And it does it by particular strokes of the tabla, right? The way you learn tabla is using an oral notation, so that you use syllables that imitate the strokes, and these are the syllables contained here. So the first stroke, the first one, is marked in tabla by a ding stroke, which sounds like this. It's a ding. It's a combined stroke with 2 hands. Then you have another ding, then you have a dha. You have another stroke in between these 2 beats, which is a ge. And then a tira kite, which is a common combination. Ti, ra, ki, te, tung, na, kat, and then ting, and continues. Right? These are the strokes that the tabla plays to show you where the raga goes. So if you want to listen to that, it would be like this. Let's get familiar with this because now we're going to try to find it in the recording. So let's do just a couple of cycles. Ka, ting, ta, ti, ta, ti, ta, ting. And just one more. Ta, ti, ta, ta, ting. Ka, ting, ta, ti, ta, ta, ting. Ting. Okay? So this is the tala in the recording we listen to. Let's see if we can listen to that tala now. So we go back to second two. Let's see if you can follow the tala. I won't do it. This is D. No one is really keeping track. So that's why if you only have, the explanation is not enough, right? So that's why we have also the tal visualizer. We have that recording here, which is rag, jog, this one, okay? Here you have the whole track, yes? Here, and these vertical lines is the beginning of each tala cycle, okay? So it needs to load, and while it is loading, I want to give you a glimpse of what we mean by bridging cultures. So this concept of using music to bridge your culture, so to go through this musical bridge to this new culture. For example, this cyclical concept of time is fundamental in Indian traditional philosophy. You might recognize the symbol, which is the national flag of the Republic of India, and you have a dharma chakra in the center. Dharma is let's say the laws of universe, of the way of behaving. It's a very complex concept, but chakra is just wheel. Am I right? Yeah. So it's just a wheel. So this concept is already in the flag, this concept of cyclical time. You have it since Buddhist, this is the Ashoka pillar, which is now the emblem of India too. You have here the Dharma chakra too, and it's related to Buddhism. This mudra, this way of putting the hands that he has, how it is? This one. This is the mudra of putting the chakra of Dharma, the wheel of Dharma in movement. It's when Siddhartha Gautama started putting the Dharma in circulation. In Buddhism, you have the same concept in Hinduism. This is the Trimurti. You know, divinity is divided into these three divinities: Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Brahma, the creator. Vishnu, the one who continues existence, and you see here again the Dharma chakra. And Shiva, the destructor, right? You need to destroy in order to create, and this is a continuous cycle, right? So tala is being understood as this cycle. You create in the thing at the beginning, you have the creation, you keep adding tension, which is tension of life, right? That you release again when you go back to the beginning and you die and are born again, right? This is the samsara, the wheel of rebirths, right? That you can now try to experience through music, right? So let's listen to the recording now and see how is the actual beat of this performance. These tools help you follow the child in performance. Now you can see, once you are confident that you can listen to the child in the recording, you can start taking information out. And see, you can still follow without the take-up. So you recognize the cues from the tabla, right? This would be a na. Was it na? A cat, yeah. Then you can even take out the cursor. See, you can follow. And see when you go to the thing. So you can take everything and just listen. And you can always check if you're doing okay. So just to give you an example, this performance has two talas, ektal and then tintal. And tintal is like this. Now there's a tala change. It's a different sound. So this way is like you can guide your listening to the music and find in the music the concept that you learned previously in the explanation, right? So this is just an example of this tool. I'll show you now one of the pilots regarding raga. Raga is the key concept, but it's the most difficult one to grasp. So we've been trying different ideas. This is one that takes advantage of another manual annotations we have, which are melodic phrases. So a rag is defined by scale, by the series of specific tuning of each degree of the scale, by a way of performing the scale if you go up or down, and also by characteristic phrases, which is the one we saw and we tried very poorly to sing previously. So we have in the recordings annotated the beginning and the end of these characteristic phrases and a label with the notes that perform this phrase. So this is fundamental to understand the concept of raga. So we're using that for this preliminary tool, which is a raga visualizer. I'm going to play a different raga now, which is the Yaman Kalyan. So it's in tintal, you have these many tals, and this is the raga. Well, this is the scale of the raga. Sa, you know Indian classical music, they use a sort of solfege. We have the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. They have the sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, and the sa. So sa is always the first degree of the scale, the most important degree. And then this particular raga has two predominant notes, so to say. Swaras is the right concept, which is ga and ni. Other rags with the same scale might have other relevant degrees for the rag. You see these little letters here, A, S, T, F. That means that you can play with the keyboard the degrees of the scale. So in the case of Yaman Kalyan, you see it has two mas, right? One is for going down, up, and one is when you're coming down when you go to be an ornament. So Yaman Kalyan could be sa, re, ga, and then this ma, pa. That would be the scale of Yaman Kalyan. So with this visualization, you can see how the melody behaves in terms of the scale. And when there is a characteristic phrase appearing, you'll see the notation here, and the pitch and the line will be changed into red. So let's just listen to it. Yeah, so you see ni is one of the relevant swaras of the raga. So he starts singing ni for a long time, right? Just to establish that this is Yaman, this raga. So that's why he focuses in this swara at the very beginning. And this is one of the characteristic phrases, right? You see the notation, ni, dha, sa. If you play that, that would be, right? Ni, dha, sa. But see what he sang, right? So if you read in a book, it's ni, dha, sa, you will never hear ni, dha, sa. You'll hear this, right? Because in performance you add all the characteristics or the personality of the raga, which invites you to sing it this way. That's another one. Is dhani, right? Dhani would be, you see how it's actually performed. Right? This way it helps you to see what is relevant, which is dhani, this overall movement, but the way it is performed is much more rich than only this notation there. And again, it stays in ni for a long time because it's one of the relevant notes. This dha is almost not sung. Yeah, you see here it's using is ma dhani, and it's using this ma of the two we have. Is using the tivra ma, right? Because it's going up. So if we go to the when the tala starts. This is the first start of the tala. Marks the ga, which is the other relevant note. And here you see the use of the two mas, right? When it's going towards up, you use this ma, and when you are in ga and go up, you use the other ma. You see this ma here and this ma there. So with that, you can explore the different use of the same swara in different formulations. So this is still not properly working, has a lot of bugs that we need to go through, and that's why it's not released, but this is how we are approaching this concept of melody in rag, and we want to integrate also the concept of tala here, so but we're still working on that, just to give you an idea of how this works. Okay, and let's come to my music, to Jinju music, and the tools for that. Jinju is even more hard to grasp in these visualizations. So I have developed this multitask sort of tool, and yeah, this is the data we have. The Jinju music corpus. We have this many recordings, music scores, lyrics, and we have a collection of a cappella recordings for which we have the copyright. This is published under Creative Commons license, so this is the one we're using. And from these many, we have 69 for which we have the voice recorded in one track and another track for the instrumental accompaniment for the Jinju recording. So this is the 69 recordings we have available for that. So what I did is I take the recording of the voice and of the Jinju. I annotated them manually in Pratt in terms of Panshri, which is the metrical patterns used in each area, and also the lines of the lyrics, each lyrics line. Then using Sony Visualizer, just manually annotate the beats, so I get a tempo curve. And then using the beats, I use two sounds we have in free sound, one for the pan and the ku, which is the two main percussion instruments that leads the percussion orchestra, and I create artificial, so to say, track about the accompaniment, right? And I have these three recordings, and from the voice using Essentia, I extract the pitch track and loudness. Now we'll see why, and I combined everything in this tool for Jinju, which is this one here. So far, I have these many areas. For example, this one here, the first of all, you get the lyrics. And these little labels are first the melodic framework, and this is the metrical framework. You see, they are all in the same melodic framework, and there is different changes of metrical patterns. And these patterns are showed in these boxes here, right? If we want to see CP Yuanpan, so it's going here, right? And then each of these gray lines, gray boxes are the lines. So if I want to listen to the first line, I can focus there, right? So I can see which of the lyrics are being sung. And here, there is a tempo curve. You see the evolution of tempo. You have the tempo in that particular moment, and you see how it evolves and how it changes in relationship with the panshi. So we start in around 80, then there is a huge crescendo in tempo here in this R-Liu, and then in Liu Shui, we go to the highest tempo. And we have two sections at the beginning, at the end, with free meter, with no tempo. So if we want to listen to this, let's listen to the first line. It's the voice and the accompaniment. Right? And this is this panku here is a track I generated with my beat annotations, right? I can take it out, or listen to it, or put it softer, right? This lighter here tells me the downbeat and the upbeat. So when it's yellow, it's downbeat. When it's red, it's upbeat. And this is important because different melodic frameworks, lines start in either downbeat or upbeat, right? In CP, they always start in upbeat. So we'll see now. Now start, right? We'll start in upbeat. If we come here to Liu Shui, this is a 1/4 meter. So you only have yellow lights, right? It helps you to listen to that. So this is a way to follow tempo. You can focus only in voice, and you can take the accompaniment out, or you can listen only to the accompaniment, or regulate the volumes. You can take this out if you're able to keep the tempo. So this is the way of exploring tempo in relationship with the lyrics for an aria. However, when Jinju lovers listen to this music, they're appreciating a lot of the voice quality. And this is very hard to work with voice quality, but there is at least one issue we can work with, which is loudness. And the changes in loudness is very relevant in Jinju. So, for example, if I want to listen to the first one, and this relates to something of the graphic arts in China, for example, calligraphy, as you saw in this manuscript here. If I open this manuscript of calligraphy, and zooming, and let's see this line, yeah. You see the different contrast of thickness and intensity of the ink. So this first character, for example, is very thick strokes and very strong in terms of blackness. So this means that the brush was very slow and very thick when painting. And then the speed of the brush is lightening. You see this one here is done very fast because the ink is very light, and also the strokes are very thin and very well connected. So you see a rhythm going on in calligraphy, and this is very much appreciated in this art. Maybe you cannot read these characters because it's so transformed that you don't recognize it, but it doesn't matter. The goal is not to understand the lyrics, it's to enjoy the beauty of this graphic rhythm, right? So I wanted to explore that using that this tool. By the way, you can see all the lyrics in Chinese in case you understand them, by listening to the melody. And here you can see, again, you have the scales in first, second, 3, 5, 6 degrees. It's a pentatonic scale. And you have the pitch track, and the thickness of the pitch track relates to intensity, to the volume. So if you listen to this now, here. You can see how it starts with this soft and then very prominent volume, and then concludes with a more soft kind of approach to singing. And you can also see the vibrato here. The very wide vibrato is an ornament. It's not a quality of the voice. You can sing without vibrato. Where was it? Here. You can sing without vibrato. You use the vibrato as an ornament. And the vibrato, for example, you see it here very clearly, is not as in classical music where the pitch is in between, but it's always on the top of the vibrato. So you have with this pitch, you go, and the original pitch is always on top, right? And you have vibratos that can last for a minor third of witness. So you can explore these characteristics with this tool. Okay, so these are the two examples I wanted to show of the tools we're working on. I can move now to my conclusions regarding the project. So we think, at least I strongly believe, that there is potential in this tool for achieving our objectives, which is multi-format, that this can be used in class. We're using in a course. You can use it also at home. You can use it in university, in I don't know if in primary schools, but you can. It's multi-format. It's not constrained to one particular educational framework. You don't need previous training for that, but you need some guidance, as I'll explain now. We have a lot of examples, and they're full examples. They're not summaries, or they're not constrained. And I think these visualizations help to establish this bridge between explanation and audio. There are some limitations, of course. Some are regarding to the method itself. All these representations are always partial representation of the concepts. So Tala is much more complex, as what we saw in the tool, the same as Raga, the same of melody in Tinju. So everything is much more complex that we can grasp with these tools. And then they are not autonomous. So we are not developing tools that we put it in online and someone goes and by using the tools learns the whole thing. So they should be used in an educational context. You need the teacher to guide you through the concepts. And once you have the concepts, then you can go back home and continue learning yourself. But they're not thought as an isolated autonomous course for learning these musics. So we already have some impact in academic forum, media, and the general public. Just to summarize, we've been going to some conferences. We've collaborated with publications in Eastern DLFM. We've done some concerts of Hindustani music, some educational workshops, one course offered here. And I say again, we are organizing this beautiful concert in July, so please save the date. We still don't know the place, but yeah. And finally, there is a lot of future work to do. So we can improve everything that's in there. You'd see that the pitch tracks were not perfect. We have some annotations that are not perfectly done. The visualization could be pretty much improved. We can expand what we have to other cultures is what we're doing with Carnatic music, with South Indian music. We're expanding the Hindustani tools to South India. We're reusing elements for other cultures. And there is new tasks to do. So especially pattern research, all the research related to patterns are very crucial in all this music. For characterizing ragas, they are crucial. In Arab Andalusian music, is fundamental, and we are collaborating with a musicologist who is developing a theory of musical patterns in Arab Andalusian music, but also in Jinju and of course in Makam with the concept of chesnis. So we can benefit a lot from human-computer interactions inputs. So if someone wants to contribute from this side, we would be very happy. We need to develop tools for evaluating the impact of these tools in the user. So we need people from cognition, perception, that help us build this evaluation framework for the tools. Because so far we've been thinking only in gamification, and we have a tool that does that. For time constraints, I didn't show it, but if you're interested, I can show you later. Yeah, so there is a lot of work to do in this direction. So just to finish very quickly. I think that we as researchers have responsibility to society, and now this is becoming more and more apparent. There is still branches of academy that this is very obvious, and all the applied ethnomusicology research is how to use your research for benefiting society. And perhaps if what we do can be called computational musicology, maybe we can try to take that idea and work towards applied computational musicology. And I thought of that because of this quote. So this is a Spanish politician that 2 years ago said, a day like today, 447 years ago, on October the 7th, 1571, a naval coalition led by Spain defeated the largest Turkish fleet off the coast of Lepanto. That day, those who preceded us saved independence, sovereignty, freedom, in short, Western civilization against barbarism. And I was struck by this quote because the crowd cheered just at that point. And I'm not expert on Turkish music or Turkish culture, or I never approached this tradition, but just doing a very simple research, you see, well, for those, we all know what barbarism is, but you see the definition, right? Inferior, uncivilized, violent, rude, uneducated person. The Ottoman Empire. So the Sultan that lost that war was Selim II, was a not very relevant Sultan, but he was the son of Suleiman I, called Suleiman the Magnificent, because of all the development of science, arts, and of course military techniques there. So at that time, this was built in Istanbul. That doesn't look, just by looking at it, very barbaric to me see. And there's a lot of subtleties there. If you go just to see inside this art of the refinement that is going there, and if you go just to the dome, this very intricate and very detailed kind of art that was developed throughout the Ottoman Empire. So, and look at the calligraphy. Yeah? We can relate this later to melodic shapes. Suleiman was a great poet. He is claimed to be a composer too. We don't have a composition from him, but we have composition for another sultan who was a composer. And today there is a repertoire that is commonly played by this composer, by this sultan here. So the Makam tool is still in development, and it's not perfect, but this is a recording from this sultan. Makam is very complicated. You see this very tiny, if you listen to the scale, this Makam, Pesendide, uses a scale and extra tetrachords that go on top. It's a very complex Makam, but it will sound something like, wait. That is the one, but then you can use other notes like this one. right? Did you have all these little nuances? For example, these two notes for the first scale and this for the second scale. They're different notes. And they're used in specific movements, in these flavors, chestnut, because the melody is trying to look for different flavors. And if we listen to the melody, it's still richer than that. And I'm not an expert, and I see that the tool is not working perfect, but I can relate these subtleties to the calligraphy and the aesthetics that I saw in the mosque there. And this look for the nuance. So I hope you can feel the refinement of this melody. Selim III was very much influenced by Europe, but at that time, a few years before he came to the throne, Mozart was composing the Einführung aus der Sirel, the kidnapping in the Sirel. So operas inspired in Turkey. We have the Alla Turca, a sonata, many composers receiving cultural influences. The keyboard with the, this articulation for making little bells and stuff. All this cultural influence coming from Turkey to Europe. So if we receive that influence, it's because there is some value there. So I hope, and this is the aim, that this kind of work can contribute to help people understand that calling Ottoman Empire barbarism is disputable, to put it in mild terms. Yeah, that's the tool I showed. So that was my final conclusion. Happy to take any of your questions. And I'd like to finish just by thanking all the team of Musical Bridges. This is just the one that contributed directly, but I will need to thank a lot of people that contributed too. And of course, Reser Caixa for funding the project, and you for being here today, listening to me. Yeah, thank you.
Any question?
Or comments or suggestions? Yep.
What was the reaction of the audience when they actually see those Hindustani tools in the concerts?
Yeah, so in concert we haven't used it. We tried a live tool for Macam, but the problem is when they play too fast, the tool it doesn't work accurately enough to be used in live performance. But we used the Hindustani tools for the course I showed, and we didn't have many students, 7. But we had since a professional percussionist to a professor of biology that have any background in music at all. And I got nice comments from all of them. I hope they were not out of politeness. So that's why we need the evaluation tools to see how it actually affects. But I know people who, after the class, they continue using the tool at home and try to go to recordings that they never had before and see if they were able to detect the tala, for example, there. For raga, is harder. So it seems they are usable and they're generally well received. Yeah, but we need to explore that in more detail.
There was a master thesis last year.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we have a master student working in developing a framework for doing that, to do experiments of two populations, one using the tool and one without, and just by giving the explanation of the tal, see which is the impact of that. However, he tested in too short population to have definite conclusions. Yeah.
It's a very useful tool, and it's just that the people don't know.
Yeah. Well, we hope they're useful. Yeah.
Regarding the visualization, there was any methodology to choose, you have to use this particular kind of things to show, or that there's a lot of things you can show from the audio?
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe most of the thing doesn't make sense musically, but is there any methodology to select what was?
Yeah, that is the first task of the work plan, to choose which of the elements we were to be working in the tools. For example, in the case of Tala, there is all these nuances of subdivision of the beat that we thought was too complex to show here, that we didn't thought of a very clear visualization of it, and we thought that it is better at this stage to focus in simple concepts, like the general structure of the Tala. Why we use a circle is not our original idea. It's been used long before. We have one collaborator, Nijing Amin, who's been developing similar visualization of that. There were videos using this circle. The concept of cyclical understanding of time supported that idea, but it's just there is no specific methodology. It depends of each of the music traditions, and detecting which of the elements can benefit from this visualization. Right? So, for example, in Jinju music, timbre and tone quality is very important, but we couldn't think of any way of putting that in screen, so we don't address the specific concept. That's why we said all the tools are limited in the representation of the music.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I saw some other platforms like who try to teach this rhythmic thing in the musical context, and for example, in the case of Carnatic music, they were like showing simple transcription, mostly 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this kind of thing, like mostly as a mathematical pattern, and they show the transcription. And I see that these kind of videos have like a huge following, like a lot of musicians are following it in social media, like Instagram.
And in Kofla, in the project here, they use it also for flamenco palos. Yeah, this is a quite common visualization for metrical cycles. Yeah. It wouldn't work for our simple meters like 3, 4, 4, 4, but this is a common.
But what I mean by that, for example, compared to the tabla syllables, right? Like, for example, in this, what I've seen in this thing, they don't have that set of syllables. It's in the recording, it's in the audio, but it's not transcribed. Instead of that, they simplify it to some numerics.
Yeah, so that's one of the way of exploiting the data we have. We have data sets of tabla strokes that we can use for the visualization. That was, I think, a nice addition to think that you can not only see it, but just try to bridge this listening and visualizing gap. Yeah, there is one.
Regarding the evaluation, you were saying that you have some ideas on how it would be evaluated. Can you elaborate a little bit on how?
Yeah, it's very simple. I can show you perhaps, and we close with that. Is this find the sum? So just going to gamification kind of thinking. If we load this audio, so now you listen to the recording, and you have to hit the key S every time the sama, which is this part on top, is sung, right? So you just listen to this. Right? Now I got one attempt that was right, and I got 1 point. So if now I take out information, I get more points. Now I get 2 points. If I take this out, I get even more points. So just the way. So if we have a way of tracking the usage of this tool by particular user, would see how much points ends in each session, how easier it is for him or her to understand the concept. So if the way of gaining points is shorter in time, so it might indicate that it's But nothing more sophisticated than this.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you again.
Yep. Thank you.